All right, there was a story late last week. Many of you were surprised by my opinion on it. Russell Westbrook is now going to play for the Lakers, and I get it. Now, I don't like Westbrook's game. It drives me nuts. It's not built for the playoffs. In the playoffs, NBA basketball slows down. You don't get all those freebie transitional baskets that Russell Westbrook lives off of. Once you play a team 4, 5, 6, 7 times, they can marginalize you, force Westbrook to do what he doesn't want, which is shoot threes and shoot long twos, and he's a very inefficient playoff performer. But in the regular season, he has value. And we live now in a specialized world. Take DoorDash. I don't need it to shop for me. I don't need it to make my dinner. But about once a week, I want chicken parm pasta and broccoli, and I don't want to cook it, and I don't want to shop for it, and I've got things I'm doing at home with the kids. Can somebody just bring me in 30 minutes what I want to eat? And I call DoorDash. It just fits a role in my life about once a week. And that's what Westbrook does. LeBron is old. You got to reduce his minutes. Anthony Davis sometimes plays hard. Sometimes he's available. Westbrook in the regular season is available. Plays his arse off. Plays with passion. Unlike AD, is totally 100% committed all the time. Westbrook's a little like if you live in Chicago and you have a convertible. You can drive it about 3 months, and it's the coolest thing in the world. But it is Chicago. You're on the lake, and 9 months, a little chilly. Time to get in the SUV or the family van and take the kids to school. Everything now in America is about specializing and fitting and filling a need. There are very few players in this league that can do everything. Even LeBron now has certain limitations. Giannis is the finals MVP. You wince, you cringe at the free throw line. He can't shoot outside of 10 feet. And he's the finals MVP. The regular season MVP, he's got a bad body. Doesn't get up and down the floor very quickly. There is no perfect player. What you do, if you're LeBron James and you have Anthony Davis, who sometimes is there and sometimes isn't, apparently these guys met weeks ago at LeBron's house. He probably laid it out. And for the role they need him, which I think Lakers aren't done adding pieces, will primarily be a regular season role. You'll get to the playoffs. You'll minimize some of his outside shooting. LeBron will play more minutes in the playoffs. He'll control more of the offense. But it's like baseball. Sometimes, Alex has been covering it forever, sometimes you need innings eaters. You just need a number 4 starter. You bounce around baseball for 15 years. You got a lively arm. I'm not starting you in Game 7 of a postseason series. I'd prefer to only pitch you in a postseason series if I have a lead in the series and don't need you. But you know what? On a Tuesday night in Oakland against the A's, you give me 7 innings, you give my bullpen rest, you're exactly what I need. There's a role for Westbrook at this point in his career, playing with somebody that will ultimately have his respect and have the basketball primarily in his hands, LeBron. I don't have to love somebody all the time. I don't have to use any product or have to play any player 24/7. We're in a specialized world now. Go look at the finals. Who did everything well? Devin Booker's not going to play much on the defensive end. You don't want Giannis at the free throw line. PJ Tucker could just not score and be incredibly valuable. Drew Holiday had nights he couldn't throw a ball in the ocean, but he was valuable because he could muck up and ugly the game to Chris Paul. It's okay. Not everybody's everything. And Westbrook to the Lakers, I like it. I get it at this point in Russell's career. Let's bring in Chris Broussard, Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. So before I get to the Clipper situation, which is fascinating, I know I'm not a Westbrook guy, but I saw the move this weekend and I thought, it works. What he brings, passion, minutes, effort, the Energizer Bunny of the league, it actually works with old LeBron, question mark AD. I look at this roster and I'm like, he's a playmaker. He's been in a lot of playoff series. LeBron likes him and trusts him. And I'm like, I actually get it. It actually makes sense. Your takeaway on the Westbrook Lakers move.
Wow.
I know.
That makes me think you got a late night text or call from Rich Paul or something like that. No, but look, I'm not in love with it. I've said that I'm not in love with it. The pieces don't fit, but I will give them a puncher's chance and then some for several reasons. One, the talent on the top of the roster is ridiculous, right? AD, LeBron, and Westbrook. You're talking about 3 superstars, 3 icons and Hall of Famers in the future. LeBron is one of the smartest players we've ever seen, so I think he maybe can figure this out. Westbrook, to your point, does take the physical toll, some of it, off of LeBron and AD during the regular season, right? They won't have to carry as much of a load and a burden, so maybe that helps them be healthy in the playoffs. And the West doesn't have a juggernaut. Right? The Clippers, I don't think Kawhi is going to be back the rest of next season. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll come back in April or whatever. But I'd be surprised if we see him play next year. So the Clippers aren't going to be that great. Golden State, okay, yeah, they'll be better. Golden State, Phoenix, Denver, Utah, they're good, right? They're contenders. None of them scare you. All right, Portland obviously doesn't. I do think Dallas will take a step up with Luka, but, they're not frightening anybody. So with that being the case, I think the Lakers have, a chance in the West. I still like Brooklyn better overall, but the Lakers, Colin, the challenge is that their 3 top players can't shoot that well. LeBron's a good shooter. He's not a great shooter. He's good and he's streaky. AD is not a very good shooter from 3, 30% for his career. Westbrook, we know, can't shoot 31%, 30% for his career, something like that. So what I like, Colin, I know they talked about, I'll go to power forward, says LeBron. I'll go to center, says AD. I think LeBron should be the point guard.
Yeah.
I think LeBron should look at this like I'm Magic Johnson, right? I'm the third option. I'm going to make sure AD gets his, Russ gets his. Russ can push it in transition. Russ can push it when I'm on the bench. But when we're all on the floor, LeBron should be the primary decision maker in the half court. He's going to get 20 points just by being on the floor.
Right.
That's how good he is. Though he has to set up the other 2 guys. And, of course, they better put shooting around those 3.
Yeah, and there are rumors they are going to add some shooting pieces. So this is fascinating. The Clippers without Kawhi in 2 years are 19-16. They beat the Utah Jazz, the number 1 seed, without Kawhi. They've got an excellent coach. They've got a very good roster, a smart front office. But it's fascinating to me they're being held hostage by Kawhi Leonard. So they're going to pay him $36 million this year to not play. And I don't think he'll play this year. He's a guy that, listen, we know he's not playing to the All-Star break, and we know what happened in San Antonio when he had a real injury. They're paying him $36 million to not play, but to just keep him happy for the right after next year to sign him to a contract. And I look at that and I think, okay, timeout. He's nonverbal. Good God. We just found out yesterday he had a torn ACL. Everything's a mystery. He shouldn't wear a number. He should wear a question mark. He doesn't communicate. You never know his health. Is he going to play? And I look at and I think, Clippers, this is a good franchise now. This is not an embarrassment. It feels, I'll be honest, Chris, it feels desperate. I don't know if I would pay somebody $36 million for the right to negotiate a long-term deal. I don't know. I know Kawhi's great, but man, I've watched it for 2 years. He does not build chemistry, and he's played 48% of the... If he misses next year, Chris, he will have played 48% of the games in 3 years. I can't pay you $36 million not to play.
I hear you, and you didn't even throw in really the physical component. You talked about, he doesn't bring the verbal leadership and things like that. Also, he's an old 29.
Yes.
Right? He's already was load managing at 26, 27 years old. And I was told even in San Antonio early in his career, he did not want to get on the court unless he was 100%. He's just that overly cautious type of guy with his body. So that's why I'm with you. I don't think he's playing this year at all. And if you're him, why would you even risk coming back in April or May and looking pretty good?
Yeah.
Right? Not looking like the real Kawhi Leonard when you're expecting to get this deal. So all of that said, Colin, and I said I'd be leery because we saw Amari Stoudemire, and I don't have to go into Penny Hardaway and all these other greats, Derrick Rose, where injuries derailed their career. All that said, I think I'd sign him. And the thing is, I think most teams in the league, if not all, would sign him. And I think, Colin, what Kawhi is going to do is he's going to do a 1-and-1. He's going to do probably a 2-year deal with a player option for the second year so he can get his money this year. And like you said, he won't play. And then he can, I think he'll go ahead and say, give me the 5 years, $235 million.
Oh.
That's on top of this year, $36 million.
Oh.
So he can lock it up for 6 years. Now, maybe he'll sign a 4-year, $176 million deal. But if you look at the numbers, right, it makes sense to do what I just said. 36 this year, 5 years, 235 next, after next summer. And I think Steve Ballmer will do it because, Colin, I got to say this. Look at the Clippers without Kawhi. Let's look at them next year. Without Kawhi, they're going to struggle to make the playoffs because I don't know that they'll be able to bring back Reggie Jackson. And, that Paul George played well. We saw him win, some games in the postseason without Kawhi. But I think over the course of 82 games, it's going to be tough on them. And so I think they'll do it to be relevant and to have a shot to win a championship. We know he's got deep pockets, Steve Ballmer, and this has been a franchise that's been irrelevant for so long. They're so hungry and desperate, to use your words, that I think they'll do it.
Oh, my gosh. And by the way, pay him $36 million.
They could regret it, right? Halfway through that next deal, you made the last 2-3 years of that deal may be a disaster. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he'll stay healthy, but it's risky for sure.
Well, and also I like people who communicate. That's the key to relationships. And when you're in a relationship with Kawhi, you're just not getting that. Finally, Dame Lillard we predicted on this show he would say the trade rumors are mostly outrageous, but keep the door open because he doesn't want to take the glimmer, the glamour off the Olympic moment. Like he just wants to live in this moment. He doesn't want to take it away from the team. So he said, let's not talk about that. But there's real belief that Portland is trapped in NBA quicksand. They're about the 12th best team in the league, and they didn't have any draft picks. Your gut feeling on what Dame does when the Olympics end? Demand a trade or stay put?
I think, Colin, what he'll do is I think he'll give Chauncey Billups one season. I think they'll be able to convince him. Look, like I said, there's no juggernaut in the West. They can say, hey, we're close to Denver. We beat them a few years ago. We played them tough this year. I know they didn't have Jamal Murray, but still. I think they'll try to convince him to go 1 year, give it 1 year in Portland. Maybe Chauncey can turn that defense around. That's really been their problem. Offensively, they've been able to score. Nurkic is 1 more year there. So I think he'll give it 1 more year. If they don't go deeper in the playoffs, then I think next season is when he'll make his move. If I were him, Colin, I would go to them now and be like, look, work something out with Philadelphia.
That's right.
I don't think he loves the Philadelphia situation. But if I were in his shoes, I would say work it out with Philadelphia. He and Joel Embiid would be able to give, and you got Tobias Harris there still.
Yeah.
Do it around Ben Simmons. They could challenge Brooklyn. And so, look, Kevin Garnett, Colin, wanted to be loyal to Minnesota, right? He didn't want to go to Boston initially. Finally, he relented. He went. And then a few years later, he said, man, I wish I had done this earlier in my career. Playing for championships is huge. And if you're a great player, and that's what Dame is. So I think he and a Bradley Beal, for that matter, are wasting time not making a decision to ask for a trade. but I think that they'll both waste this time.
Yeah. Chris Broussard, great stuff as always. Westbrook, Kawhi, Dame, all good topics. Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
All right, my man.